All right, well, welcome back to SQL in the City. Hopefully you're enjoying the whole day here. We just had Rob show us full stack development and actually recovered from some issues, which was kind of cool.
DevOps is awesome.
Roll forward.
DevOps works really well. So we've got a panel here where we wanted to do some discussion about career-based stuff. So skills that you might need for a successful career. We've had some requests. I talk about this a lot. Other people do in SQL Family. So I have some questions that I wanted to ask my crew here. But if you've got questions, please, you can tweet them out with SQL in the City hashtag, and we'll get those in as well. But earlier today, so Grant and I were sitting around. I think Kathi was there. Rob was practicing. And we actually had an interesting question here about what if I don't want a career? What if I just want a job, right? I don't know if it was Grant, it was you, or Kendra, or somebody said it. So what do you think about that? Right? If somebody goes, I just want a job.
Well, I think you're crazy. There's nothing wrong with that. Right? I mean, if you really just like you want to go in you go in and sit down in your cube, work 9 to 5, and then leave. I mean, I suppose that's okay.
Right. I mean, I think we've all had bad jobs. I know, Kathi, you got out of a job you didn't love to do this.
A career I didn't love. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So yeah, that was a job. That was not a career. I mean, it was, but I didn't think of it that way.
Right. It was just go to work, leave.
Right. And I didn't spend time outside of work improving my skills. I did the bare minimum.
Right.
I didn't go to events. I wasn't excited about it. So now, obviously, I'm very excited and happy to be where I am and do spend a lot of time outside of work.
And then, Rob, as a developer, do you see developers that just have a job, right? They just show up? Do you think that works well, or is it not such a great path?
It's hit or miss because there are people who definitely want that, who want to go to work and do their work and then punch out and have other pursuits and other passions outside of work. That's totally fine. Our industry tends to cater to the passion.
Right.
The people who really want to dig in and use their off hours to do interesting things and, give demonstrations in random countries. And so it's really cool to be passionate and to be really excited in this industry. And it's really fun to dig into lots of things. If that's not you, that's okay. But this industry tends to favor those that do. And so you may find that your progress is limited in some ways. And maybe that's fine for you as well.
Right.
Ultimately, if you're only after the 9 to 5 and you're after the paycheck and you're going to put your efforts into somewhere else, invest in those things that make you happy.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
Well, I mean, the one thing I would add to that, because you guys are right. The one thing I would add to it, though, is that it's technology changes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're completely dependent upon, well, my boss will tell me what I need to know, and you'll learn what they tell you to learn when they tell you to learn it, there's a really good chance that they don't know what you need to learn until they need it, and then they're going to go, oh, wow, but you don't know this. We'll get somebody else in here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
you may be limiting your career.
Exactly.
I did exactly that. I woke up one day and realized that I had 2 more degrees than anyone else in the company. And that they really focused on...
That means you have at least 2 more than me, so...
Yeah. They really focused on hiring kids out of school so that they didn't need to pay them and waiting for them to retire. That was like their business model. And so I woke up and realized that I was a technical dinosaur.
Yeah.
That was a scary day. But I took that opportunity to get passionate about my career and to really carve out a new skill set and make myself marketable and keep myself marketable. So ultimately, my path to success is that I realized that being a dinosaur didn't work for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're right there. The one thing I always try to get people to remember is it's great if you have outside pursuits that keep you fulfilled and you just want to go to work. But every time you're not learning something, other people are, and you're just increasing your risk level. I've seen, as I watch LinkedIn, I'm sure all of you have on LinkedIn, we have that status feed.
Oh, yeah.
And alarmingly, I see people saying, I just lost my job today. Right? Like, it's not every day.
Yeah.
It's not even every week, but it happens with a suddenness I think we're not prepared for. So if you just want the job, that's fine, but I don't think you can stop learning, right? Maybe you only want to do a little bit, but you should be doing something and building a career in some way, even if you don't want to be a presenter or you don't want a different job, you should still be learning.
Sure.
Ideally, the durability of your career is not linked to the arrangement you have with your employer.
Right, exactly, right.
Right.
And I always remind people that you should always expect that I really just work for myself and I sell my services to an employer.
Yeah.
So whether you have you're the full-time employee or you're a consultant, you should have that mindset.
Yeah.
Because you never know. What's
Right.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
All right. So I had an interesting question I thought of earlier too that I was curious. Well, we're relatively old, right? He's a little younger.
Thanks.
We start with Rob, though. If you could go back and tell your 20-year-old self something, what would it be?
Stock symbols.
Stock symbols. With regard to your career, though, right? So let's keep on the career side.
Be passionate. Be really excited about what you do, and have a lot of fun with it. Not every day that I get to go to work is a day that I get to have a lot of fun, but the majority of them are. I've chosen a career that I'm really passionate and really excited about, and so the majority of the time I get to have a lot of fun at work. So go find a career, go find a field where you get to be really passionate, and go really embark in that and embrace it.
Yeah. How about Grant?
I tell them, don't go to film school.
Yeah, my advice is similar to yours.
Learn something useful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what he said. I mean, the one thing I would go back, if I really could tell my younger IT self, get engaged with the community, either online or in person, or better still, both. I didn't do that for years and years, and man, do I wish I had.
Well, there was no online when you were 20, though, right? To be fair.
There wasn't when I was.
There's no online.
Did they have to like?
No, there was no online when I was 20.
Yeah.
But community is a good point, right?
Yeah.
But
you can always do community.
Yeah. You could always do community. I mean, and yeah, there wasn't online when I started IT. There was in '88 when I started, but
not at 20.
But not at 20.
And learn how you learn, so that you can go to those places that have that content. Some people learn by reading, and so going online can be perfect. Some people learn by seeing, and so watching videos and going to conferences and going to user groups can be really effective.
Yep.
Right.
And some people learn by hearing, and so podcasts might be a better choice.
Right.
Right.
There's a lot of differences.
All right, Kathi, how about you, right?
Yeah, so I don't know whether to say I need to go back to age 15.
You picked the age, right? But something when you were getting started.
Oh,
so I had blinders on. I picked one profession and at 15 and had blinders on and didn't let anybody dissuade me from that.
Right.
And that was the wrong thing to go into, so it took me several years to figure out what it was I really loved to do, and then I was did it. But yeah, I think I went to a college that had only one major. I think.
Really?
Yeah, St. Louis College of Pharmacy, only one major. And so I think if I had just gone somewhere else that had multiple majors, again, we had no internet back in 1976. It would have been easier to switch. By the time I realized I hated it, I was about a year from finishing.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow, that's kind of amazing.
I'm just happy that I found what I did love and then decided to pursue that, and so have been happy ever since.
Yeah, I think that's good. My kids are college-ish age, right? Grant, your kids are that age too.
Yeah.
And I always tell my kids that you should investigate lots of different things because the world is wide, right? So the world is super wide. But even technology, what we do with our with development or data stuff, it's a fairly wide array of things.
Oh yeah.
And my advice is always you have to experiment and try things so that you understand what's good. But maybe more importantly, figure out what you really don't like to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
If you don't like infrastructure and you don't want to admin boxes, then you should know that early, right? If you don't like writing C# code, learn that because at least then you don't do something you hate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'd prefer you can find a job in something that you really enjoy. But if you can't, then at least don't get stuck the other way for sure. Right. And just experiment. So with that in mind,
I have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Do you need a degree to go into programming?
Do you need a degree to
go into databases?
So let me ask you this: for all four of us, do you know anybody that doesn't have a degree that does this job?
Yeah.
Lots.
Yeah.
Lots.
Do you know anybody that doesn't have a CS degree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Lots.
Hi. I have neither. I don't have a degree, and I don't have a CS degree.
Right.
I don't have any degree. I'm a film school dropout.
Yeah.
So then, how do I get started if I don't have a degree? How do I get that first job?
Luck.
Well, I think it's a variety of things, right? You gotta
Yeah.
beg a little bit. You've got to show some interest and passion. You've got to do work on your own for sure.
You've got to do a lot of
Side
work on your own.
projects.
There's absolutely the opportunity for you to pick up learning on your own right now, whether it's books or video from any of us, right? We do lots of training. Redgate has lots of training.
Projects for scouts, projects for local
Yes.
church organization,
Yeah.
volunteer or something or other. I mean, there's lots of stuff you could do.
You could, and honestly, if it's something out there, just rebuild it, right? Whether it's doing data ETLs, whether you're rebuilding an application, or you want to rebuild what Rob did today, just do it on your own. Get used to it. And we have this wonderful thing on the internet that where we can all publish what we want to do, right? Anybody can make a blog. Anybody can make a GitHub repo.
Yep.
And show the world what you can do, and then build your soft skills, right? Those are certainly important. I think we would all agree that at least as important as our technical
That's the other thing I
skills.
want to tell my 20-year-old. Don't be a jerk.
And what's really cool
me
is
a
we now have
long
a
time to
culture
learn
of
that
open source. And so I can look at GitHub and I can contribute in meaningful ways to GitHub.
Right.
Go find an open source project that scratches your itch. And as you contribute to that, you're building up marketable skills. I've seen some people get hired because of their open source contributions.
Right.
Yeah, I know
So,
that too.
And it's
while
not
you're
just
working full time doing the whatever,
right.
contribute to open source in a meaningful way and build up that history of
And
success.
those people aren't just the book writers. They're not the the guys that wrote Apache or
Right.
that write
No,
Linux,
no.
right? These are just normal people
Yeah.
that contribute something
Yeah.
and get hired, right? So people that we've just never heard of, but it's
They're just
impressive
working
that they show
underneath.
those
Yeah.
skills. So you should certainly do that. All right. So one of the interesting things, we're all data platform people, right? I know Rob's more of a developer in some sense, but databases matter a lot to you. You do a lot of
Sorry.
databases.
I write
apps.
apps. We love you. That's what I used to do too. So
Yeah, we love you
Me
too,
too.
as
I
long
used
as
to
you
do
say
it.
yes.
Yeah. So what's
No.
what's a technical skill you think is really important, kind of in the database development world now? Like, if you were going to pick one thing to say, not the only thing somebody would learn, right? But just pick one thing you think.
Communication.
You think communication?
Yeah. And the reason I say that is because at the end of the day, programming is a team sport. And so gone are the days where I can live in my cave and just, pull the hood over my eyes.
Okay.
I really need to be able to communicate with my team members. I need to be able to accept their code changes. I need to be able to propose mine. I need to walk into management and be able to talk to customer needs and customer features. And if I have that, sit in my cave mentality, I'm really not going to get very far.
Yeah. No, that's a great point because I agree. I think it was Jeff Atwood. Maybe it was Jeff Atwood that said all programmers should major in English, right? Not CS. Should major in English. Because,
There you go.
wow.
Because communications,
Nice.
analysis of something, having a coherent, succinct way of explaining something or describing it is
Tell a
super
story.
important.
Yeah.
Huh.
Interesting.
So I agree with that. I think communication is huge.
And programming languages are languages.
Yeah.
They absolutely are, right?
Yeah.
They have verbs and nouns.
It is
and
just another
syntax
communication
and
mechanism. Yeah,
punctuation.
it's absolutely true.
Yeah, they don't use commas correctly, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
as long
okay.
as
You
they're at the
see
end,
people
it's
like
fine.
the commas at the beginning. I totally don't get why you.
don't.
It's like the question marks
go there.
upside down.
I don't wish to talk about T-SQL, which is a horribly broken language, and it upsets me to no end.
But
so.
I love T-SQL, and I think people should learn that no matter what area, like if it's SQL Server they're going in, I think they need some basic skills in T-SQL.
All right, so you think so communication, SQL. So what about MongoDB, right? What if we pick a different platform? What if I'm not a SQL Server person? You still think SQL?
I'm not sure because I
don't
don't
know?
have enough experience there. I just have all the SQL Server experience, but so.
But you could work on Oracle. You could work
I
on
could.
Postgres.
Oh yes.
You could work.
We have an article
Very
out
MySQL
that just came out on 10 tips for Oracle SQL,
Right.
and there were 9 of the tips that you can apply to SQL Server.
Right, so
to
SQL is fairly generic.
Right.
And it does exist in a lot of NoSQL platforms.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no such thing as NoSQL, but anyway,
Well, it's
that's
not
a different
only
range.
SQL, right? Not
Yeah.
only SQL,
Yeah.
Right.
But no, all of the not all, but a large percentage of the other ones. What is it? Oh God, I've forgotten his name. Well, anyway, it's every data operating system will eventually have some structure of SQL with it.
I think so.
Because
right?
there's
Neo4j
Hive
has
SQL, there's
a SQL-like syntax. So, all right. So SQL, right? Because the data platform communication. What's another one?
statistics,
Statistics.
math.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah.
Everybody working with data today, and I mean this if you're working in an unstructured, semi-structured, or structured storage, you should understand maths some degree of statistics, some degree of math. It's so huge for everything we do, and it's been a hole of mine that I've been struggling to fill.
And it's interesting the depth of math that you need to solve different problems. When you're getting into big data and AI, then statistics is really important.
Right.
When you're solving forms over data business applications, it's algebra. A lot of coding is algebra.
If you're trying to tune a query and you're kind of unsure about the data distribution, it's down to statistics, an understanding of why and how they arrived at. Well, yeah, but but why and how they arrived at the numbers. Right. Is just a huge thing, and then all of the rest. I mean, the computer science, all the stuff that you were showing, the machine learning. I mean, all that crap. I mean, it's math.
Yeah, so that's good, right? So T-SQL, math, communication.
What's yours?
So I think for me, the one thing that I would say is I think scripting is super important.
Yes.
Right. So while I do like C# and I don't really like Java, but I mean I appreciate that. These languages are important for lots of things, right? There's lots of applications that are super important. I also found that scripting teaches you a couple of things. One is it teaches you basic programming flow for sure, right? How to get, put things together. But maybe more importantly, it teaches you to get things done, right? I find sometimes developers get caught up in this has to be engineered great and perfect and it has to be pretty code and stuff. Yeah. And that's fine. There are times and places where that matters, but when you have to do scripting, a lot of times you're like, I need to be effective and accomplish things. And that's a valuable skill for me in my career that it's not always pretty, but I have to be effective and things have to happen, right? Because ultimately I'm being paid for value, not for code. I'm not being paid for features. I'm getting paid because something is delivered to the customer.
Right.
And so I think scripting, whether you're the PowerShell, you like Bash, you want to go back to VBScript or something, I think scripting is hugely important as we move forward.
And you can do some really interesting scripts in Node as well, where you just have a JavaScript file and you're sketching,
right?
And combining interesting things.
And you prototype, right? And it just teaches you some things that you don't get in other ways, right? If you click on the GUI, if you're worried about building the perfect application, scripting is a way to just kind of remind you sometimes that I can accomplish something quickly, right?
Delivery, right? Yeah,
right.
It's all about
and maybe it's not super robust, but it gives me a path forward from there.
Sure.
And then learn where that script will fall down. And a more robust approach would be effective.
Those are the next things, right?
Roll forward.
There we go. All right, so let me switch a little bit. We got a few questions.
Yeah, some questions.
So somebody's asking, how do we find remote jobs, right? So you're remote.
Well, I'm remote. Yeah,
I'm remote. You work from home.
Yeah,
now, right?
I'm remote too.
We're all remote.
How do you find a remote job? Ideas?
As part of my community work,
get hired
I
by a
bump
company
into,
outside of
a lot of recruiters.
Right.
Recruiters sponsoring my user group is really nice. Hey, here's a barrel of programmers. Dump in pizza and you get to pitch your message. So I bump into recruiters. Recruiters help me find companies and thus remote jobs.
Yeah, so
that's
I think
my ticket in.
There are more being advertised, but still there are plenty of people and companies that don't want remote work. Right?
Yeah.
They don't like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I think maybe my advice there is ask people, right? So I've worked in a number of companies where I've been able to transition to partially remote.
Yeah, part-time remote.
And a lot of that is, I prove my skills are there, that they can trust me to get things done. And then B, just ask the question, can I start to be partially remote? And it's certainly a question I always ask in interviews too, because it's important to me. And I want to know, are they flexible and not flexible? They don't care. It could be all over the board, but a lot of times it's not in job descriptions too.
Sure.
Because they just don't do it, right?
Yeah.
Nobody doesn't think of it. So you can
and
ask.
I found that remote is a skill. It's a skill of remote people, but it's also a skill of local people. Yeah. I need to find that person who's on site who can include me in meetings. As we go around the table and I'm on the squawk box in the front, it's really easy to get around the room and I was not even part of that call.
Right, and I've had that happen here too.
Oh yeah,
because it's a learning experience.
Oh no, never here.
Yeah. Well, that's because I went through
that. And so I need to, as I'm interviewing the company to see if I want to be employed there, I want to understand what is their skill in facilitating remote work.
Right.
And if they don't value remote work, if they don't have that skill, maybe that's not the company for me.
Yeah, I will say, I think, tech companies, California companies, make it more likely that you'll have a remote position. but
maybe
it's not always true, right? It's certainly
and management culture changes over time. So you need to understand that sometimes if remote is your highest priority, then you may need to change companies to facilitate that.
Absolutely.
But the one thing I would suggest is that you practice a little bit.
Yeah.
Do like 1 day a month remote just to get a feel for it, because I know people who can't work remote.
Right.
That's true.
Right. So stop for a minute. So I've been remote for 16 years now.
Wow.
All right. My wife did 20
So
years.
So you started when you were 7?
You've been remote in different jobs for a while.
6 years.
I'm 7.5 years. I wasn't
here.
Yeah. I part-time at my previous employer.
Okay. And how long
I've been remote the majority of my career.
Okay.
Wow.
And so do you think
can leave now.
Easy? You think it's easy to work remote?
For me, it was a little bit weird to get started. It was hard to train my kids when they were, 2 and 3 and 4 that you can see dad, but he's not home. And so we created paradigms for that. Dad's at work when the door is shut, when the curtain is closed. And then I would say, Dad's coming home, and I'd play, 5 or 6 minutes of solitaire or whatever to have that drive home transition time, and then I would be home. Once they understood that remote was a thing, and that I could be home but not home, then it was okay.
That was fine, right?
Yeah.
So your kids are older.
My kids were older. Yeah, but when I finally started doing it, my kids were older.
Yeah, but I got to say, for me, like it was odd leaving an office and going home, and it's quiet.
Yeah.
Right. And like times my wife wasn't home, I'm by myself. Right. It's me and the dog, and there's nobody to eat lunch with. It's an odd thing.
Oh,
there's stuff at home that I need to do. It can be both
wonderful and awful.
Yeah.
Right? And I think what I found is I would cycle. Well, I would love it. It's great, and then I would be like, it's too quiet.
Right.
Yeah.
I struggle to get things done.
And then go find a co-working space. Go hang out with friends at
and do stuff like that. So the one thing I'll say is it's not for everybody. Like it sounds wonderful, but I've met plenty of people that have tried it and don't like it because it is very odd to be responsible for stuff that's not your stuff, right? Because it's somebody's company.
No kidding.
Right, and then but you're by yourself.
Or you can ease into it. Like what I did is from 20 years ago. I had over 20 years ago I had one job. And then I was doing programming. I was learning programming and started actually doing programming for money. So that was at home most of the time. So I have always done work at home. And then there were book projects.
Right.
So even though I've been...
Books.
So you could practice.
Right.
Bit,
I mean, I always had side projects, always.
And that's an interesting thing to think about, right? Because, Rob mentioned having your passion doing something outside of work and learning. Maybe that's a good way for you to practice thinking about remote jobs. Do something on the weekend, at night, in the morning. See how it works with your family, your setup, all that stuff, right?
I love this question.
All right, so you want to see? You want to ask it? You want to do?
Well, the data platform is no longer just SQL Server, which is very true.
It's not.
With so many new products and services, do you recommend being a generalist or a specialist?
All right, so
Kathi,
are you a generalist or specialist?
I'm a generalist.
You think generalist?
Yes.
All right, and do you think people should be? They're better at generalists?
I don't know. I just know that's what's happened to me. I don't know that it's a good thing.
So if your daughter said, I want to go into technology, would you tell her to be a specialist or be a generalist?
She is looking at data science. So she is looking at being a specialist.
Specialist.
Yes. So she may be a midlife career changer like I was.
How about you, Rob? What do you think? Generalist, specialist? You're a developer?
A generalist or a specialist? Do I go lots of skills really thin, or do I take a few skills really deep?
What do you think? What
I like is to be a T-shaped person.
Okay.
Where I have many skills generally, and I have a few skills where I go really, really deep.
Okay.
So I can code really well. But I know a little bit of Linux ops, and I know a little bit of Windows ops, and I can, set up a database, and I can get Grant mad at me. And I have these skills that allow me to, expand into other things. I can go up to a DBA and have a conversation about statistics and indexes and not be, a total jerk.
Right.
But then I get into the coding realm, and it's not like, well, I don't even know how to do that anymore. I went deep in the things that I had passion about, and I learned enough of those skills around me to be able to be passionate and effective in those places too.
Yeah, I think it depends on a little bit of who you are. Like I'm not a T-shaped person, right? I think I'm more of a bell curve, at least out to a standard deviation. So I've learned a lot. Ali's doing this, right? He's making. I think he just called me fat on a live stream.
Some people have a bell curve in different places.
I was thinking more this way, but I start to learn things, but I find myself getting into tangential areas that are related, and so I build skills in a wider area. Nothing super deep or expert, really, but a wide variety of skills. Partially because of who I am, I like to try different things, and partially because I think it creates great opportunity. Like I know some super specialist people that spend a lot of time in one area and they get paid very well, but their opportunities are very limited.
Right.
Right.
Which is why they have to charge so much, because they're off a majority of their time.
They're off or they're limited. I had a friend in the telco area and he got stuck at some point because there was like 3 companies in the world that could do what he did.
Right.
And so either he has to do something different or he works there.
Right.
So I think it's good to have some general knowledge. I think you should have a lot of general knowledge on computing, and really I think everybody should really spend 6 months or a year in C or Java, just because you need to understand how difficult some of this stuff really is.
Right.
And it helps you to understand just how the computer works, right? Why resource management is important, right? Why we are careful with what we do, not sloppy.
And peel back the onion one more layer than the one that you need.
Right.
So that you understand those abstractions and you can play to their strengths.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
if you just pave over it, then you may be doing some really obnoxious things.
You do, right? But if you work in C, like I was helping my son with C++ this summer, and you realize like you can't make too many mistakes before just everything stops working.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything just stops.
How often did you reboot?
Yeah, but you also then appreciate how much stuff is going on, right? Like if you try to write to a file, right, do random access or sequential access to a file, then you start to go, well, I really appreciate what SQL does, right? Because it's huge.
Yeah.
Right. The optimizations they do are huge.
Well, I mean, so talking data platform. I mean, I think you should learn MariaDB. I think you should learn MySQL. I think you should learn Hadoop.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you should learn what they are, what they're good for, where they fit in all the giant puzzles. That doesn't say that you're not a SQL Server person and structured data person, but you at least say, you know what? What you're asking for, we could do it with an ID value pair. We could do it with Cosmos DB way better. Now, I can't support that real well. I can maybe get you started, but then I'm going to go get resources. We'll bring them in, and then we'll go we'll go forward from there. But because you really want to know where to point, not
how
simply
to make a judgment, right?
Yeah, make those calls. I mean, and then the one other point that I was going to make on this is the best thing I ever did when I was we had the whole in hibernate coming in. It's like we're going to use in hibernate, and and what's the immediate thing you do? You do a couple of searches online, and you start making the oh my god face, and what I did was I sat down and learned how to program it. Now I didn't program it well.
You got a to-do list, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. It was really, really ugly code, but I got it functional, and so I got it to work. And I got it generating queries, and I was like, okay, so I see how this works, I see how it's supposed to work, and I see where it can go wrong.
Right.
And so now I can go to my dev team and say, like, okay, I've got some knowledge. You guys know more than I do, but I've got some knowledge. We need to avoid this area. You know what I mean? And
you cannot wear on every column. I'm
right,
sorry.
Yeah. But I mean, it made a difference. I mean, it really made a difference of what I could deliver to the team.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So I got a related question. Actually, I was thinking about this too. We've all encountered projects, or we've bid on something, or we've gotten something from the company where we don't really understand the technology that well, right? I mean, a perfect example, right? If all of us probably understand what Cosmos DB is, but if somebody said, "Need you to build something in Cosmos DB tomorrow," we'd be scrambling a bit, right? So how do you learn or keep up on something if you get tasked with something, you have a need, and you don't really know it well? So let's say you know less than 50% of what you should know to do that.
Right.
What do you do? Right.
I'll start by building a prototype. I love the to-do app as an example, because I have an auto-incrementing primary key, I have a foreign key, I have a lookup table, and can I get that experience into this new platform? I've seen some apps where it was a maze and solving the maze, or some apps where find that app that you really love to build and build that in the new technology.
That's a good idea.
That's actually a pretty good idea.
I think we do that kind of now at Redgate. I'm looking at Ali because he's here, because we have the honeycomb and the mosaic stuff. So we kind of have these tinker toys that will let you assemble at least something. If they said, I want you to work on something new, right? If they told you to go to auditing, you guys can't see him, but he's right there. We have stuff here at Redgate to just put that together, right? Makes it simpler and easier, right? He's nodding. Yeah.
I agree. Fail fast.
Fail fast. That's good. So
fail fast.
Same thing, or how would you tackle it, Grant?
Well, I mean, I like.
So you don't get Cosmos DB, right? So let's say
I feel pretty good about Cosmos
we're
DB.
going to give you Data Factory. You have to learn about Data Factory.
Oh crap!
You got to build a pipeline this week.
Right.
So what do you do?
So one, I would do what he does, which is basically go in and try to. I poke things until they explode. That's one. But the other thing I do is if I know someone who knows it, I will contact that person and not bug them like
Right.
Please come over, spend 6 hours, show me what's going on. Right. But I'd be like, okay, so I've been tasked with this. I know you're the expert at it. Can you just point me at 3 things that'll get me over the hump?
Right.
You know what I mean? So because I can do the research. I mean, you can do the Google, and you probably can find 2 of the 3 or
guidance.
1 of the 3. But you get a little guidance, and then suddenly it all gets easier.
Yeah.
And I usually need them in 2 places. The first place is get me past the blank page.
Right.
I fired it up. Now what? And then the second place is I've done a few little experiments and I hit this wall.
Yeah.
I know you're the expert. How do I get past? And I'll get myself stuck in 2 or 3 or 4 different places before I go bug them.
Right.
Because then it's like, yep, it's me again.
Yeah.
But
that does require networking. So I mean, you have to talk to people, which goes back to the communication thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's one of the things I like to do is I do rely on the fact that I know quite a few people, and I know that they're all smarter than I am. So.
Right.
I agree. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
There you go. How about you, Kathi? What?
Yeah. So I will probably block off a weekend and say, nobody bother me. I'm learning this new technology this weekend, and I might grab some. I love books.
Right.
And it's so easy to get books, instantly nowadays. And I'll go out and find tutorials. I learn by doing a lot, so I want to find some tutorials. I'll start with creating something simple. It might be Hello World,
right?
Yep.
But that's pretty much what I do. I've got to learn by doing, and again, doing all the Googling. I don't know why I don't reach out to other people as much when I'm learning things, but there are so many, so many resources available that I don't really have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think I'm more like you, Kathi. Like I tend to look for a tutorial or a project or a book that's already there in that particular domain, and try to work through it.
Yeah.
Right, kind of just follow somebody's path. But certainly then, like you, I have some favorite things that I like to port over and see if they work, and I do have a list of people to call, right? Right. Yeah. So like Grant's one of the execution plan people I know that if I get stuck somewhere and I don't understand it, he would be I call, right? Rob is a developer, so C# type stuff I would go, or web stuff, or container stuff. Actually, Rob has a great container series. How does this work?
Oh, cool. Oh, good to know.
I have some hardware people.
You made my list.
Right. I have Oracle. I have certain people that I think are fairly expert, but I don't want to bother them when I'm starting, right? I want to save it until I get stuck, and then I reach out and go, how do I do this thing?
Right. That makes sense. That really does.
So
I love to follow the tutorial. Once do it live, and then
see
once go do it again and go, yeah, but I wanted to go this way.
Right. I get in trouble
I follow the
right?
chocolate cake recipe, and I end up making strawberry pie. And it's wonderful because I learned the bounds of why they made the choices they did in the tutorial.
Exactly.
Keep poking it till it blows up.
All right, so let me go over again. So we talked about learning a lot in your skills. What about certifications? Is anybody certified? You are. You're a trainer, right?
Yeah, I was an MCT. Was it MCT?
Yeah, MCT.
I never really used it because I was teaching a lot, but not the official stuff, and I couldn't use the
stuff.
The surveys that they wanted you to use.
Yeah. All their resources.
Right. So, but yeah, I used to be the queen of certification, I think. But it's the last 2 or 3 years, I just haven't even taken a test. And now I'm like, well, I don't really care about it. I'm good at taking tests. I'm really good at it. And if you have a test that's in beta out there, I'm really excited about that.
So do you think it's worth it for people that...
It depends on their job.
Okay.
You know, I think it's the first thing I think it's good for is like, let's say a new version of SQL Server comes out, and this is a way that I can learn about the new features, because these certifications are part marketing tools.
Right.
You know, and so I can start learning about features that I'm never going to touch at my day job.
So is that the certification, or are you just following the list of things they're going to test?
Following the list of things that they're going to test you on. It forces me, every time I take a certification test on SQL, I have to go back and learn how to work with XML in it. You know, because I just don't.
Right.
You know, so it forces me to kind of get out of my comfort zone. So I think it's good for learning.
Okay.
The other thing that it's good for is if you do work for a consulting company, in some cases they get benefits.
Right.
Based on
Gold partner.
Yeah, the partner benefits. Plus, you can all, you know, if they're trying to sell you, they're trying to say, oh, we have this this woman here. She's been certified in SQL Server since 2002. This is the person that we want to send to you. Oh, that sounds great.
Okay.
You know, so that couple of benefits.
You like it? You certified?
Nope.
Do you think it's worthwhile?
Nope.
Okay.
That was easy.
The learning lesson, the lesson plan, you know, so like here's what you have to know to be certified.
Right.
It is a structured lesson plan.
Right.
So that much, yeah, absolutely. That aspect of it's useful. The gold partner, absolutely. If Microsoft says we have to hop through 4 hoops to make gold partner, cool. Let's hop through those 4 hoops.
Right.
And then it's a checkbox for the recruiting for the HR department, and I hate it. No, I hate them. I hate certifications.
Grant's protesting.
I am anti-certification. Damn it.
What about you, Rob? What do you think?
I got given some great wisdom by a mentor pretty early in my career, and he tells it this way: I could have chosen to get certified in Windows XP,
right?
But that only lasts as long as Windows XP.
There's still Windows XP. Let's be clear.
That's true.
Yeah, in China.
Running SQL Server 7.
Yeah. Or I could choose to get a degree, which is much more durable. Both of them document that I can take a process through to completion.
Yes.
They document that I can learn new things. But in the case of a degree, I can use that forever. In the case of a certification, yeah, that gets me through HR. That gets me through, you know, all of the hoops. But the tests are usually geared to pass the test, not to know the skills.
Correct.
And so I find more value in degrees and in real-world experience. I haven't had anyone who's come to me recently and say, oh, but you're not certified in this checkbox yet. I can't hire you.
Yeah, right. So I have seen that. I actually have.
I was going to say, I've seen that.
Companies that have that as a requirement, just like they might say a bachelor's degree, they might say an MCSE.
Especially when you're early in your career.
Yeah, I think it matters. So to that point, I think Grant has it right. Like if you've got to jump through the hoop because it matters for your career, your industry, then you should do it.
Yep.
And I think I like it just because it helps. It does drive learning, and having that test does put pressure on you, right? Whether you pay for it or not, it puts pressure on you to do something. Yeah. But honestly, for me, I'm at the point in my career, I'm older. If that's required for you, I'm not working for you. Like if you think it's that important, I'm just not working there.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it and tell you why I'm not doing it. But I'm not going to.
Yeah, I was just trying to say, you want me to tune a query for you? Cool, I'll tune a query for you. Oh, you can't tune the query because you're not certified? Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I actually took a job where that was a requirement. I was halfway through the MCSE, I think, and they said you got to finish it. And a year later, I hadn't done it. And my boss said, well, when are you going to do it? And I said, I'm not doing it. I'm just not. And he just said, right, real world experience, you do a good job. I'm not going to fire you. It's like, that's good because I'm not doing it, right?
Yeah. I have the opposite story. I went back to school and got my master's in CIS in the early 2000s. So one of the requirements for this particular degree was Introduction to Visual Basic. And I went to them and I said, I shouldn't have to take this because I'm certified. I'm a certified developer. I've been programming in Visual Basic for probably at that time, like 8 years, and professionally for 5 years. I shouldn't have to take this. And they said, no, you must take this.
Wow.
It was they said, have you ever taken a college course in Visual Basic? No, I have not. But why would I? But I have this.
I'm doing this professionally.
I'm a certified developer. There was whenever they used to have, I don't know, there was one particular time around 2000 that they switched the certification. I've got an award. I was one of the first people to get that certification. I told you I was the queen of certification.
I know, yeah.
But I got an award for being one of the first people to get this big certification. So it was just funny. It was like the opposite. Unless it was a college course, it doesn't count. Real world didn't count.
That's crazy.
You know, it was crazy.
Yeah,
Eventually I argued enough and got out of it.
Well, good for you.
So.
All right. So let me go. There's a couple more I want to cover before we get out. So all of us have had careers where we're up and down, right? So if somebody's career kind of plateaus, if they feel stuck, and I run into people like this all the time, whether that's challenge or salary, right? How do they get more opportunity? How do they unblock that?
There's a great cartoon with a coyote and a roadrunner where he blows himself up continuously. Right. That's one way to go. You know, walk into your boss's office, storm in,
quit.
Yeah, make a big scene. You'll leave. You'll probably flunk out of the industry. Don't go there.
We don't recommend that.
Don't do that.
Right?
Don't do that.
The other option
it's not approved
is
by Redgate.
understand the limitations of the platform that you have. You know, maybe you need to scale back your passion at your employer to put your passion somewhere else, open source or in your community, to build up those skills that will allow you to reach that next plateau in your new position.
It's a developer answer for sure, right?
Yeah. I had a conversation with my boss at a previous employer, and it was I said, look, I don't feel like I'm getting paid. I don't feel like I'm, well, it was both, but it was mainly getting paid at the time. And I was like, I know that if I leave the company, I can get paid more. I said, I don't want to, but you got to help me.
Right.
Either I walk and I get paid, or you pay me, and I would rather you paid me because I want to stay here.
I had that conversation exactly one time.
Yeah.
And I found myself in the parking lot with a cardboard box at the end of the day.
What happened?
I'm like, no, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, but I had it.
My thing was to find the place where you want to land first,
right,
before you burn the bridge on the way out.
Well, but I didn't burn a bridge. He was very much. He really understood. He's like, you know, I see it. We, you know, we'll do a little research. We'll figure it out. And he came back
work out really well.
And he gave me more money. I mean, because I wasn't at the top of my range. I was, you know, I mean, if I thought I was at the top of my range and walked in and said I want more money. I wouldn't be shocked if I was out in the parking lot then.
Yeah. How about you, Kathi? What do you think?
I've kind of done some weird things. I've taken pay cuts to get a job I liked better.
I've done
that
too.
That either might have had better benefits or doing work that I wanted to do. So I've kind of gone the opposite, which just seems kind of strange. But
well, if you can do that, or if you have flexibility to do that, I think that's
sure.
I mean,
right. Like, there's all kinds of situations you get in, and I never judge anybody else for their situation, because most of the time I've been blessed. Like, my wife has worked often, so I had leverage, right? I could afford the cardboard box scenario. But what I've learned too is that I need to find a path that makes sense for me, that I'm happy with. So ultimately, I think you have to have a conversation, right? So if you don't feel you're being paid appropriately, you should have a conversation with somebody, and they should be able to justify why or why not.
Right.
Right. Like, I don't think ultimatums are good.
No.
Because
no, and I think delivered as an ultimatum.
Right.
I mean,
but you know, a hard ultimatum is never good, because typically, at least for me as a manager, I think a lot of people do, is that I just don't want to be in that situation, so I'd rather let a resource go than get into that spot.
Sure.
Right.
Well, and also if people start threatening stuff, they're going to do it every time.
They're going to do it every time, right? The other thing is
just,
you know, asking for money is usually odd. So I think as a manager, I'd say you can probably get away with that like once every 5 years, right? You can't come back to me every year.
No.
Because
I did it once in 10 years.
Yeah, just get rid of it at that point. But it is a fair conversation to have. Just be aware that, you know, everything you do has consequences, right? So,
the corollary to that conversation is, as you're beginning a new gig and you're negotiating your salary, they're like, well, yeah, but we can't pay you that. But let's start here, and after 30 days or 90 days, we'll talk again.
Right, and it should always
that 30 or 90 day conversation has never happened for me.
Yeah,
I walk back in and they're like, "You're already here. Why should we pay you more?"
Yeah. Well, it is a conversation. You have to have it. So that's an important thing to do. So let me get this last one, because we got a few minutes. So how do I write and publish let's say an article, a white paper, a book, or something.
I was going
like
to say
that.
articles and books. I can tell you, white papers. I've never broken that market.
Right.
I want to break that market. That pays well. If you want me to write your white paper, get in touch.
Yeah, scary DBA for white papers.
There you go.
So how would you guys? So how did you get started? I know. Right? Publishing, right?
About in writing in general?
Books, writing books, writing articles.
Well, with me is when I finished up my master's degree and I had to write a thesis, I said, oh, I can actually write something. And so then I contacted Steve, I had an idea, and it just snowballed from there.
It's history, okay.
Yeah.
I was writing screenplays. For real. Nice. Never sold one, but I was shopping them around. But I could string together an English sentence.
Right.
And so when I started doing tech stuff, I started writing tech articles too, for you.
Great.
How about you, Rob?
I've noticed that tech articles and fiction are very different styles, and so it took me a while to ramp up into that. I also see content getting shorter and more compact. So blogging can be a great choice. Medium articles can be great. Sometimes maybe your voice is Twitter, and that's totally fine too.
Yeah, I think start doing it, and really I think ultimately your own blog is a good place to start, and then reach out to other people.
Yeah, and then write articles. Don't try to write books out of the gate. Writing books is horrible. Even for those of us who've done it successfully and like it, kind of, it's a horrible experience.
Yeah, it's
it's a lot of work.
So start with articles.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little session talking about careers and you got some good advice out of it. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a minute with a bunch of red guys. They're going to talk about red stuff. We'll see you soon.